Greeting family. Welkom bij In Conversation with. Vandaag hebben we een gesprek met Dr. Shantella Sherman over popculture, muziek in de popculture. Vorige keer hebben we al een In Conversation with met Dr. Shantella gehad. En vandaag is deel 2. Welkom iedereen. Nog een paar minuutjes en dan zijn we er allemaal bij. Ik zie dat Benji er al is. Benji, welkom. En daar ben ik ook. Wat denk je er weer? En we wachten even. Dat is Shantella. Hi, how are you? Die is daar ook. We wachten even op Don. Don, meldt u zich even. Don Karleon. We're waiting for Don Karleon to come in. Yeah. Is it 8 o'clock already? I think it's 8 o'clock already. Yes, now it's time to start. Yes, please. Yes, here we are. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining. Hi, Dr. Shantella. Hi there, Benji. Hallo iedereen die meekijkt. Welkom bij House of Khepera. Mijn naam is Eyedontha. And today we are going to talk about pop culture with Dr. Shantella Sherman and Benji and Don Karleon. Dr. Shantella, I could tell a lot about you, but I think it's better if you do it yourself. So be with you in a minute. De bedoeling vandaag is dat je natuurlijk meekijkt, maar vooral ook vragen stelt. If you have questions, please drop them in the comments below. We are in Zoom, but you can see this live. We are live now on Facebook and want to talk to you, with you. So this is all about you. So if you have questions or if you have comments, please drop them in the comments. Waiting still for Don Karleon to join us. You know that Don is in France or going to Italy. So I think he's, searching for a place to log in and to do his thing. But I know he will join. It's just a matter of time. Before we start, and I'll explain what we're going to do, I would like you to do a short introduction about who you are, about yourself, and then Benji say something about myself. Please, welcome. Would you tell the listeners and the watchers? This is so cold.
Yeah, your sound is not good.
No, my sound is not good.
Now it's good, but when you were talking, you were breaking up.
I was breaking up.
Yeah.
The only thing I can do is log off and then come back. That's the only thing I can do.
Now it's good. Now you're talking great, but for like a half a minute there, you were breaking
you couldn't hear what I would say. Okay, I'll keep it short. I wanted Dr. Shantella to do an introduction because we know Dr. Shantella now for a year. We were introduced by Paula Bina. Thank you very much, Paula Bina. Yes, thank you. It's been a year, really interesting, learned a lot. And I think it's best if you do your own introduction, please.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for giving me a stage to present this information. Thank you, Eyedontha, always. And Sister Benji, again, always a pleasure to be in your company. I am Dr. Shantella Sherman. I am actually a US-based historian. My research focuses on race, the science of racism. I deal a lot specifically with eugenics, which is a science of better breeding or breeding out certain types of traits from a culture. It deals a lot with nationalism, but also with genetics and genomes and how that filters into things like housing policy, education policy, marriage, laws that dictate any and everything that we do, including our entertainment. So always happy to discuss again how race infiltrates different spaces. There's Don. How it infiltrates different spaces and then kind of deconstructing those laws or theories so that we understand where they came from. Again, I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I manage a group called the Acumen Group, which provides lectures. We also have, thank you. We also have Acumen Magazine, which is a space for lay historians, meaning everyday people who have everyday stories about their own histories. They get to submit their information, and I work with them to make those histories legible and readable within the magazine. The magazine is published 4 times a year. And we just came up with the most recent one, which I can't hold up at the moment, but I'll definitely put a link on to you. So again, anytime you have issues that deal with race and popular culture, you look for me so I can help you decipher them.
Beautiful. That's
That's
Yes, beautiful.
great. And Dr. Shantella, one of my plans is to come to Washington and to see the museum. And I think it's the best thing that if we come down there, that you'll just give us a tour of the museum.
Absolutely, absolutely. And little known fact, I actually did a short stint working in the museum. So with with some of the exhibits and the publicity surrounding it. So I'd be more than happy to serve as your personal docent and take you around through the museum. It'd be a pleasure.
Oh, great. You see a lot of things to do. Don Karleon has entered and joined the conversation. Hi, Don. Yes, it looks beautiful there where you
I
are.
know.
Yeah, it is. Looks beautiful. Thank you for joining. Sister Benji,
Yes.
because we all know Sister Benji here in Holland. Sister Benji is like a public figure, but really undercover. Like a public undercover figure. Wherever I go, they'll be like, "Yeah, you work with Sister Benji." They know Sister Benji. Everybody knows Sister Benji. Sister Benji is doing tours in Amsterdam. Is a historian as well and a docent. I think you call it a docent, yeah, a teacher.
A teacher.
A teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the difference between a docent and a teacher?
I think that a docent is more like somebody that's teaching like at a university, like a professor or something.
Oh, really?
I'm just like just a regular high school teacher, and so it's nothing big, but
It's important.
this is
It's important. Doing really important work.
It is important, and as you know, I'm working at a special ed school, which is special education, and this is also part of eugenics again, because I just keep on telling the children, a lot of the children there, well, the school that I work at now is a little bit different because it's more aimed at children that have like it's not mental disorders, but disorders like autism and more things like that. And you see that most of the children are white, most of them are white. But when you had the special education where you had children with problems, most of them were Black.
Ah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna. I think in the nearby future we can do a session about schooling, because schooling is also part of pop culture, and this is what Dr. Shantella also deciphers, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So there are different topics. This is a film, ads, music, and housing and school system. This is what Dr. Shantella does. But to do it all at once is it's not not going to work. Not going to work. So we're just going to chop it in little pieces. So today it's about music. It's pop culture and music. What I want to say. So you have 2 hours with us. We started at 8. We're gonna finish at 10. Do our best to finish at 10.
Okay.
And we have 4 sections, and after every section, we will answer the questions which you drop on Facebook. We will do some short recap so you can follow what if you don't understand, or if you just join us later, you will still be able to follow the session. pop culture. What have we done until now? Because this is the House of Khepera platform, of course. My name is Eyedontha. I'm your host. We've been doing this session for, I think, 2.5 months, almost 3 months. And we started with Professor Kaba. Spoke about spirituality versus religion. Then we spoke to Professor Smalls. You can find that session on our YouTube channel. And that was about African sacred science, and the energies, what they're all about. And then we had, of course, the Black Madonna. That was Sister Benji. And the Black Madonna, who she is and where she's from. And then the Black Madonna, Christianity. We spoke with Kimani Huji, the language, African language it's from, what started is much older than the European languages. You can't hear me?
Okay, so then.
Rewind.
From where?
We hear you now, but when you were talking, you were just going to say we spoke with and then.
Nay, everything.
No.
Yeah.
You said that you talked about Dr. Kaba, Dr. Smalls, and the Black Madonna.
Yeah.
And after that.
Black Madonna part 1 was with where she's from and what her role is. Yeah. And after that was with Christianity, about Black Madonna and Christianity. After that, we spoke with Brother Kimani Nehushi, African languages and culture. Then it was Sister Benji and Don Karleon doing a review of the history, and of course Paulo Bina doing the whole timeline. And I think after that was where we are now. That is the pop culture.
Yeah, actually, and between those we had the Congo culture as well.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And the last one, indeed, we had Dr. Shantella explaining to us, enlightening us about decoding the pop culture, and most importantly, the demasculinization of the black male, but as well the highlighting of that image of the strong black woman, because both of them go parallel, hand in hand. So we have the demasculinization of the black male and that strong black woman images and how it was translated into pop culture, in films, in videos, in music. And I had the pleasure to be, how could I say it, to have like my hallelujah moment of the year by actually understanding from that perspective, how the two greatest, biggest Afro-American artists of the millennium were portrayed, and their role fitting on that global pop culture image that was sent to us. So it was quite an amazing session last week. So I'm like, I'm in the mountain somewhere in Italy, and I was like, I can't miss the session of tonight. So I'm going to find the Wi-Fi somewhere. I've been chasing Black Madonnas all over the country. So it's a pleasure to have you again tonight on the show, on the follow-up of the pop culture and the so many images we selected, and so that you could enlighten us more about it.
Thank you.
Lovely. That's
beautiful. Yeah, we haven't introduced Don Karleon, but Don Karleon is our also a Hawk member. You look different now, Don.
Well, I'm a Black Madonna chaser now, so you see me looking like Jesus, right?
That's good.
I've been chasing Black Madonnas all over Italy for the past 2 days, so my whole aura changes already. So I'm quite spiritual from another level.
Okay, nice to hear. Don Don is making music as well, and so from that point of view, Don it's also really, really interested to hear your point of view in a minute. So we're gonna start now. Yeah, let's start with the questions. And then I will look at the back end. I think I made a little mistake. I shared I shared the conversation on Eyedontha's page
Yeah, on
and
your
not on
personal
House of
page and on
Khepera's
the
page.
House of Khepera. Yes.
So please let everybody know they have to be on House of Khepera. I also shared
Okay.
it now on House of Khepera, so you can join it there. It's a little bit of a mistake. It happens, you know. Yeah, to start with the first question, what is pop culture? You explained it to us last week, of course, but for the people who are there, could you briefly say something about that and then tell us about the pop culture in music, please?
Sure. With every nation, when it wants to push forward or exert its identity, it does so through popular medium. So whether it's newspapers or advertising, pictures, statues, monuments, all of these represent the national identity of this particular nation or this group. And so when we start talking about popular culture in this nation, in America, I keep forgetting we're in different places. I'm sorry. When we do this in America, a lot of times it's about placing certain icons in front of people to say, this is where our might comes from. This is where our strength comes from. This is who we are. This is what represents us. These are our phenotypes, meaning this is what we consider to be normal. This is what we consider to be exceptional. These are our brave. This is what makes us who we are. And so when we do pop culture, we talk about advertising, we talk about how we get those messages. Sometimes people call it propaganda, and I don't negate that because I think that's important. But if you're, especially a place like America where you have immigrants that you're allowing in, all right, you want them to assimilate into a particular body. You want them to assimilate into a particular space in a particular type of way so that everyone is speaking the exact same language, even if they don't understand the exact same language. So for those people that were coming through Ellis Island who weren't speaking English just yet, they understood very clearly what the hierarchy was in this country with relation to race. And they understood that through pictures, because a picture, like I said last week, is worth 1,000 words. So you start to understand through advertising and what were called trade cards years ago. If you went into a store to pick up flour or to pick up anything, there would be these little cards that look like business cards that had iconographic photos and images on it to advertise different products. Sometimes people just collected them, they were free. They were set aside to demonstrate the illustrations of the new industrial age, lots of color, very, very vibrant, but also to make it clear to people who picked them up who was in charge, what was acceptable, what was unacceptable, what was normal, what was abnormal, what was fit, what was unfit, and what becomes popular and acceptable within American culture. And so every nation does the exact same thing. And you start to see this again in iconographic pieces, ephemera, the Aunt Jemima label, the Uncle Ben's label.
Uncle Ben.
So, right. And so it was understood when I first started doing this research, when we get to about 1840, 1850, even people who cannot read understand labels on packaging. And so I don't care whether it was axle grease or sugar or hominy or whatever the case might have been, it was almost always 99% of the advertising was of a Black person. So if you were selling axle grease, you had an image of a Black person on there. And there was something about representing Blackness that dictated the order of things. For instance, one item was called 2 Coons Axle Grease. And it has a little Black boy holding up a raccoon. Okay, so you've now made this young Black boy akin to a raccoon, and you've made him an animal. And so anyone who just looks at that 2 Coons Axle Grease understands that you're saying that this Black child is actually an animal. He's a subspecies, and we get into all of that. I'm not going to go eugenic on you, Ayedontha, but you start to understand, again, the placement in society that you're putting folks. If it's a dishwashing liquid or a detergent, it's the same type of thing where there ads a little white girl asking a little Black girl, why doesn't your mother wash you with Pears soap, because the
Right.
idea is that if you're Black, it's because your skin is dirty. So dirt is made akin to hygiene, which is placed next to disease. So all of a sudden, every time you see a Black person, the belief is this person is diseased, they're dirty, they're less than. And so the photos are never placed in a space where they're positive. And so as the media changes from advertising to public performances with minstrel shows, with music, because of the sheet music has images on it, to actual radio programming, and then into movies and television, nothing really changes with this except the medium itself.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking about this soap, it reminded me of I think Dove had a advertisement not too long ago about this Black woman washing herself,
Yeah.
and she was pulling up a T-shirt, and out came this lily white woman, you know, and it's and I have to say, I'm really wondering how you're thinking about this, because I love looking at especially a lot of Afro music, and you know, it really burns me to see that if you watch the women that are in the videos, they are mostly really light-skinned women, you know, and I was in Senegal. No, I was in Gambia the beginning of the year. It's like almost two centuries ago, you know. But I noticed that I said to them, I said, look, you know, me personally, I'm just going to declare the whole of Gambia and Senegal Mr. and Mrs. World, because they're like the most beautiful people I've ever seen.
Yes.
Very, very gorgeous, very regal, really so amazingly beautiful. Now, if you watch the advertisements that's along the road, they're
So let's
all,
get it. Yeah,
oh my God, it's
let's get
you
it.
know, I was so angry, because I'm like,
And
who is
this is,
doing this? Who's doing this advertisement? Y'all need to get on their
yeah,
case, because they're poisoning the young people. And then what you have is that any shop that you go in, any grocery store,
bleaching,
drugstore,
bleaching
they're
products,
selling the bleach and stuff, and it's just destroying these
bleaching
people.
products.
Yeah.
It's no, and why is this so
Sister
strong?
Benji
Yeah.
and Dr. Shantella, I had this problem because since I'm a musician myself, you know, I had this problem since I'm a musician myself. I was aware not only about colorism, but also about the image you portrayed it. So one of my last video, I think it was like last year, yeah, past year, where I was planning to shoot at Curacao, and I had, especially for the video, you know, I was looking for a dark-skinned sister just to cut the image that, you know, of all the light-skinned sisters on the videos and so on and so on. But what happened is that the person who had to be featured on a video could not get into the video anymore because of personal circumstances. And then I was like, blocked, like, okay, what should I do? You know, I cannot replace it because the idea was to have a dark-skinned sister on the video just to not fit into that stereotype kind of image, because, you know, we're aware of colorism, anything that goes beyond. So I've chosen a fully video without any more than at all, since she couldn't be part of the video, you see? Wow. So, but I'm not I'm not a famous artist. I'm not chained into contract and sellings and so on and so on. So it's like a luck situation that I can embed into myself. But I understand that for a lot of brothers who are signed into contracts and they have to sell, And the mentality of selling is as long you know, closer to white, you better sounding, better looking. It's kind of a big trouble of being like for freeing yourself from that matter.
Yeah, I have to. I'm sorry, Dr. Shantella, but I have to interrupt before you answer this question because this is we skipped. We're going into the stereotyping and we're going into the third part of this conversation. First, we have to build a foundation so people who don't know much about what we are talking about can follow the thread. You see, or can follow this conversation because this is lead level. So we start from scratch. So you answer the question, what is pop culture? So the second question is, how is it interwoven into music?
Again, very, very easily. Again, the idea with popular culture is not about what's there. It's not about what's in front of you. It's about what folks want to see. And if you're not the person who gets to dictate what's in front of folks, then you get exactly what we're talking about now. You have beautiful black skinned people, but all they're seeing are images that don't look like them. And so very soon what they'll start to do is internalize that where they want to see themselves. And since Muhammad won't come to the mountain is going to Muhammad, you figure if they're not going to put my black skin on that poster, then what I'm going to do is make myself look like the poster.
Yeah.
Because what you're telling me is that's what you want. You're telling me that's what's acceptable. You're telling me that's what all of my teachers look like. That's what all of the people in the newsroom look like. That's what all of the people on the ad labels for beautiful things. Now, if it's something to saying, oh, your hair is coarse or your skin is too dark, they'll find a dark-skinned person for that. If it's for something where they want you to lose weight, they'll find a big woman or a big man for that, right? And for Black people, a big man or a big woman is what's called average. All right. I want to make sure I keep saying that over and over again. We come in all body shapes and sizes, so there is no actual norm. Okay. It's only what someone tells you is acceptable and unacceptable. And so you start trying to fit yourself into a box. You start trying to fit your people into a box. So very easily with music, it's the exact same thing. A very, very concrete bit of evidence for this. When we talk about, you've heard of the Cotton Club in New York.
Yes.
All right. So when the Cotton Club first starts, everyone's like, oh, wow, they have Black dancers and it's, you know, it's a cabaret of all Black people, but all of the Black people there are very, very light. First thing. Second thing, they can perform there, but they can never be guests there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing that they don't talk about, if you ever see photos inside the Cotton Club, it's decorated like a plantation. Okay, so there are a lot of things.
Oh my God.
The inside of it is decorated with cotton bales and like the parts of it, the front porch of a plantation. So you start asking exactly.
This is now?
Well, the Cotton Club is closed. Closed now. But we're talking turn of the century into the 30s, 1930s, 1940s at its heyday. We're talking about Harlem Renaissance. All right. When Black people were quote unquote at their best, it's a renaissance of Black culture and African cultures and poets and writers and everyone's coming together in Harlem. These dancers want to work at the Cotton Club, or there's several other clubs that are similar to this. But this is a space where white people have carved out in Harlem where they can come and watch Blackness.
Black people, yeah.
Right. They're watching Blackness. So what happens when you start having dancers? White people want to see something that's quote unquote exotic. So you have them in feathers dancing around, or you have, right. So you're basically giving people what they want. That becomes part of pop culture until it dictates what you consider to be something that you can market, something that someone else can make money off of. You're going to make money as a Black person, but this is not really for your benefit. This is for the other person's benefit.
The white.
Exactly. So if I start asking, and through music history, what you'll start to find, if I ask, who are the people that you listened to as a young child whose music was amazing, who are still around today? Chances are, unless they were molded by a particular time, those Motown groups, is a few of them that are still around. It's a few individual artists who are still around. If we move into blues territory, 1930s, moving into 1970s, the height of the blues era, a handful of Black blues musicians are still there. But what happened? You start turning it over and saying, okay, we can get white musicians to play this. So watch the Grammys or American Music Awards, and all of a sudden you have young white people playing the blues. By the way, that's your Rolling Stones and your Rod Stewarts and your that's all of these British groups that put an ear to this and co-opted it. So if I can get this white person to figure out how to do it, then I can negate the need for the Black person. I can just let them come in, let white people come in and watch the performances, pick it up enough, mimic the behaviors, see if they can get the same sound, and then I can pay them the real money, but still basically extrapolate what I need from you, so I don't have to look at you. So I don't have to have, and again, when we start talking, even if it was an ad for a live performance, a lot of times it's just the words, or it's a graphic that's used. Even back in those days, we're going to draw something rather than use a photo, because we don't want white girls to, start swooning over these handsome Black men. And we don't want white boys swooning over these attractive Black women. And so we rather not do this at all. If it's an album cover, you heard Little Richard for years talk about the fact that you'll get someone like Pat Bone to do the exact same, music that he's doing. Both the label would copy both sounds, release both, but it's like, make sure that the white kids don't have, this person that they're looking up to. That's how powerful pop culture is.
Yeah.
You're going to influence young white minds and how they dress and how they dance. And it's the Chuck Berrys and all of them. For Black women with blues, it's the exact same thing. Your Elvis Presley, that's Big Mama Thornton.
Yeah.
Right. A big old Black, beautiful woman. All right. That's your big, right. Yeah. That's your big Maybells.
Yeah.
That's your Etta Jameses. These are all Black women at the time who made this music. Some white ear got a hold of it and said, let's transform this, put a Black male to this, because you don't want white women singing about sex and sexual culture. You don't want them using those double entendres to talk about sex and fighting with their husbands or whatever else, or drinking or whatever else. So what you do is you put this in the voice of a white man, and you put him out on stage, and you take all the music and you make the money off of this, and this white man becomes famous. And these Black women are just pushed to the side. Little Richard, again, I don't know if he's still with us or not.
He passed away.
Okay.
I think about 4 months ago.
Okay.
Not too long ago.
It's that, right. It's that same thing. If some people say if Tina Turner had been white, she would have been a billionaire back in the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
Instead, what you did was you created a Janis Joplin who never quite hit the mark.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So it's that type of thing where pop culture kind of infiltrates a space, and then it's the imagery, it's especially live performances. It's what you start to see. And again, because Black people weren't necessarily going into white neighborhoods, but white people were going into Black neighborhoods.
Oh, yes.
They figured out how they could use it as a commodity, and make money off of it, and literally get rich off of a very Black, a very spiritual sound in some instances, and then just have someone else mimic it.
Yeah. What you're saying is it's so true. And as you were talking, I was thinking about this movie called The Five Heartbeats. And in The Five Heartbeats, it's so obvious. They're talking about how these guys, and they're singing together, and they're so amazing. And at a certain point, they start making records. And then as they come into the office of the record company, there are these white guys, and they're singing their song, and they're like, huh? And it happens all the time. And, you can, there's this beautiful meme, like hip hop in like the 80s and the 90s, and you can see all these different African-American artists, and now if you look at rappers, it's like Eminem, and it's what's this girl called? You know, it's I don't even know all of them. I've seen them, Azalea, whatever, Iggy Azalea, and you know it's just the same thing like reggae. What's the biggest selling reggae group? UB40. It's not even Bob Marley. You know what
Wow.
I mean?
Right,
And this
right.
is how it goes. You
Yeah.
know, they will just siphon it off and use it for their benefit. And not only that, what's also something that we really don't appreciate is that all these groups, all these artists, you know, they're creating jobs for a whole big white industry. You know, I was looking at this documentary about D'Angelo, and he had a manager, a guy like, you know, and he's an elderly guy, and he was talking that he was saying that he was a manager for, I think James Brown. He talked about Ray Charles. You know, he was talking about some different guy, and I'm like, okay, how come you got to be their manager? You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. We
Dr.
keep, no, seriously,
No,
we keep
Dr. Jen, like, yeah. I mean, yeah, this is how it works. Yeah, this is
a
how it works.
billion. We're not talking about a billionaire. Look at the entertainment business, please.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the
Exactly.
same, but you know, we figure it out. You know, it's the same format over and over again. You just said it, right? It's the same. It's from the 30s. It's from the Cotton Club. This is from before, because for the Cotton Club you had the blues. Or am I wrong?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Blues.
this is for like 100 years. It's the same thing.
Mhm.
So first, no, second. Okay, second is how are we going to break it? But that's for later. For
Yes.
now, what I wanted to ask you is what is the format? What is the stereotyping? Because we look at the gollywog and the blackface and the Zwarte Piet in Dutch, Zwarte Piet,
Mhm.
and we don't recognize it's the same format. It's the same format for the same, or am I wrong? Could you please?
No, it's absolutely the exact same process again, but if you're not in a room where the decisions are being made, you're always protesting as opposed to directing things in the first place. I charge most of these organizations um, with just being lazy. You know, it's the Dove people or the H&M people, whoever the company is. Once there's an explosion and everyone's upset, then it's like, okay, everyone's trying to, you know, through explain and go through all of this. And the first thing I say is, who are the people? Because, you know, when you do ads, it has to go through checks and balances. There are 10
Different
people
people.
who
Yeah.
have to watch this and sign off on it. Someone has to pay for the budget to shoot the video. So someone is looking at this all through this process. And I just keep saying, how did you get from point A all the way down here to double letters where you passed the Z and now you're at double A and double B, and you still, no one said in this organization, hold on, we have a
Oh,
problem.
that's not good.
That right, that tells me that you don't have Black people, that you don't have even white people with enough conscience to say, okay,
Exactly.
no, this is out of bounds. Let's not do this. Or instead of doing this, let's try this. Other times you actively have folks who are happy with the status quo and they want you in your place.
Right.
Okay. Just be real clear about that. They want you in your, you know, full well that some of the things that you're producing are going to cause
Not
problems.
okay.
We have, right. We have models and British Vogue is famous for this. All right. There are a couple of British models who are white, but they tan them up. They put black stuff on their face. They put hair braids in them. They put wraps on their heads, and they do a whole photo shoot in quote unquote ethnic clothing with these white females. Exactly. And so you'll do anything to cut me out of the frame, even though you're using ethnic
Yeah.
designs. And
Right.
so, you know, it's me one day being in London with a very lovely African top on that someone had made for me. And someone asked, what's the meaning? And I said, I don't know. I thought it was cute. So I bought it. I didn't get it. that the language, the meaning is interwoven. You don't leave your spirituality at the door. You infuse it in your clothes and your art and your everything else. So sometimes I'm telling people, what you appropriate will kill you if you are not careful. All right. You are signing on and pulling up things, and you have absolutely no clue what it is that you're wearing on your back or what you're repeating. All right. You're just out there in it, and you're making your money, and you're being popular. But the reality of it is, I had to have someone tell me, oh no, this is a design and the language is this, and this is what it's saying. And I said, I just like the design, and I thought the color was pretty. That's a lot of what we're getting in popular culture. You saw something, and I know right now, you know, they're messing with this chick, the little singer Adele, because she's walking around with the band.
I heard that, yeah. I heard that, but I didn't see the picture yet.
It's just, it's silly.
That, you know?
All right. It's just, she's celebrating Carnival. I think everybody's doing virtual Carnival in London, but she has the Jamaican color bikini top on, and you know, she has her hair. Someone is taking the time to put her hair in bunch of knots, and I said, okay, I could, you know, run her down for this, but the reality is she didn't do her hair. One of her Black friends did that. Yeah. So whatever Black friend that threw you under the bus. Yeah, one of your Black friends threw you under the bus. This wasn't cool. So it's like, and I get it. It's like, so when does appreciation become appropriation? Okay. If I am not benefiting from it as a Black person, you stole it. That's appropriation. If it's appreciation, you pay me the fair value of its use while you use it. All right. Or you call me in to stand next to you and say, this is my hairstylist who thought I would look cute in these Bantu knots. You put her on the bus with you. All right. So everyone can say, okay, well, homegirl, I'm glad you did that for her, blah, blah, blah. And they see that this is not just her jumping out and saying, hey, don't I look like, you know, I'm from the Caribbean?
Yeah, you know like I mean? Bo Derek we had in the 80s.
Right, right. And she was not a 10 in that. It was like, come on, we've been doing that for years. We've been doing it for years. You know
what it is? It's something that I keep hearing, and you know, that's why I try to how should I say it? I try to teach myself to compliment my sisters, you know, because it's a lot when you hear a lot when people, you know, white girls, they get compliments and, oh, she's so pretty, and you know, and I'm like, okay, you know, but that's why I say when I see beauty in my eyes, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? When I behold beauty, I promise myself to compliment it, really, because you know, it's also a part of the system that we live in. You know, if you're looking at especially video clips, it's not much that you see Black women, hardly ever, really, as in their beauty, you know. So you know, like we were all shocked that we lost this amazing brother just the other day, and what we saw in that movie, I mean, even if it was Disney's, it was beautiful. There was some beautiful people in that movie, all of them, you know. So it's something that we have to pick that up and say, oh my gosh, you know, look at that. I mean, we were out yesterday and we were having something to eat, and we were like, oh my God. You know, there's this couple that, oh my God, they're so cute, you know, and I really started, oh, you guys are so beautiful. I'm going to do it. You know, I am.
Yeah, that's a good point. If we complement each other, this is also what Dr. Shantella said. This is one of the tools we have. These things we can do is to complement each other. That's a very good point. Going back, yeah.
Okay. No, I was gonna say, if I want to make this point if I can. Again, when we start talking about the value of different things, and again, with that eye of the beholder, I sent Eyedontha a clip that talked about prison songs. Okay. years ago, you had so many Black men that were being picked up for crimes that were really no crimes. They were arrested for loitering. They were arrested for not having a job. I mean, when did that become a criminal act? I'm not sure. But the idea was to get them onto a work farm, onto a chain gang, where they're chained together, and then they're building railroads, or they're building highways, and this is grueling work. And when they're finished with the work, it's sun up to sundown. They're chained together in bunks, basically. But the men, in order to emotionally, mentally cope with what it was that they were doing, they used to sing. And the background for the music is the birds, it's whatever's in that natural environment. And it reminds me sometimes when people talk about South Africa, the stemella, all right, and you're talking about the sounds of trains going by, different things. So these men are singing a cappella, but it's the sound of that pickaxe hitting the rocks, and it's in their ear. You had some white man driving down the road who could hear them singing almost a mile away. His name was Alan Lomax. Okay. He decided he could make money off of it. So he went out into the field. He asked the warden, can I audio tape them? And these were the new recorders that were humongous, but he audio taped this, and he ended up coming up with a series of prison songs. And the men would just stand out there, they're singing, they're chopping and hoeing and picking and doing whatever for their life. Okay. And this man goes back to Washington, D.C. and to New York and to these other places, and he sells this. Mm-hmm. And he makes millions of dollars off of this. Well, and those songs are still, they're still being used today. The clip that I sent Eyedontha, and I'll make sure that you guys have it loaded up onto the website. But it's from the movie, The Piano Lesson. Mm-hmm. And it's basically showing there 4 generations of Black men who at some point were picked up by the chain gang people. And all of these men, even though they're in the same place at different times, they know these songs and they know the rhythm mm-hmm. of it. So they're sitting in a kitchen, far away from all of that pain, but you start to hear them sing it. One person starts and they all kind of join in, and they're making the sounds with their shoes and they're shuffling with this, even though they're sitting at the kitchen table. And you hear the pain, you hear the grief, but you also hear the beauty in it. Yeah. And so my issue with Lomax was not so much that he recorded it, but that these men never received a dime off of it. All right. Yeah. And so that is what I continually see when we start talking about pop culture and what's being pulled out of it. If you're a millionaire today, but 20 years from now, there's no generational wealth that's been that comes out of this. Your kids or your grandkids, your great grandkids have nothing to show for the millions that you made over here, then it's the same as if you've been working, as a mailman or something. And there's nothing wrong with working as a mailman, but I want you to understand that amount of money coming into your hands and out of it. And if you made $1 million, then understand the folks who were pushing your career along or pulling you in this direction or that direction, but without the actual talent, they made billions. Yeah. And they own your songs, and they own the copyrights, and they own this, and this. Yeah. And you walked away with popularity, right? You walked away with popularity, but nothing else. That becomes that is the American story of popularity, Black popularity specifically. And so it's rare that you find a Stevie Wonder, right? It's rare that you'll find a Patti LaBelle or an Aretha Franklin who lasted as long as they did and could continue. A Gladys Knight is still out there. Or even more so, a Miriam Makeba at the time, who said, I'm going to give you what I have and I'm not going to change up a thing. Or Nina Simone, you're going to take this the way I give it, and I'm not lightening, I'm not brightening, I'm not straightening, I'm giving this to you the way it comes out. And I'll be able to hold on to my wealth to a great extent in the process. And so those are the things when we start talking lessons learned. To the tragedy with popularity, pop culture in this nation, specifically to Black folks, is that it hasn't changed, and that rags to riches back to rags,
right,
is still the way that it plays out even today.
Yeah, and also something that really something that I really find significant is that a lot of the artists, when they reach a certain level, there's always the IRS trying to pick them clean. And I'm like, come on, these people they have financial people who's supposed to help them. I don't know if they're helping them in their grave, or if, it's unbelievable. Because on the one side, you have, of course, a lot of them get into financial problems. I mean, even the other day, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, I mean, the Isley brothers, they were trying to put Ron Isley into prison. I think he even went to prison because of the IRS. But what I'm also trying to talk about is that a lot of the artists, they get so much psychological problems, and a lot of them don't make it. I mean, it's so sad, and I wonder if it's, how should I say it? If it's the pressure, it has to be the pressure, but I'm also knowing that a lot of them getting help in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
what would you say, Dr. Shantella, is the effect? So this is what Benji is saying, the effect, the psychological effect, um, for being in that, in that framework. Like you said, you're not making the money, you're doing the work. They don't actually want to see you. They want a copy of you. So how? Because you look at Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson is criticized, but he's not the only one. So could you
No, and it
talk some more about that,
happens.
please?
You only have to look at, we have a couple of TV shows here. One of them was called Behind the Music. And I'm not sure if you all got that there. But you only have to look at that and see how, like I said, it's almost like a guidebook for how to, again, take people from zero to stardom and back down to zero. Every last person on there is saying the exact same thing. And so you start looking at the fact that, again, you have the record label will say, we will provide you with an accountant and with an attorney. Okay. But what they don't tell you is they may also be providing you with girls to have sex with on the road, the drugs that they feel that you're going to need from the pressure that they're putting you under in some instances. And then you're also dealing with, a lot of times you're pulling folks out of impoverished neighborhoods and you're giving them everything they thought they could have ever wanted. And then you start making them feel like they have to do all types of things they don't want to do in order to keep the things that you've now given them. There was a reason why even though I think, Motown did it in a different way, some people had a lot of criticism for them as well. But one thing I do appreciate was that they made it clear to the artist, this is what you do as an artist, but this is who you are as a human being. Don't lose sight of this over here. Trying to reach stardom. We're going to make sure you get everything that you need. But they were doing training like grammar. They were teaching them how to eat out in public. They were teaching them how to manage their own money. Now, if they chose not to do that, that's something different. They were telling them, yes, you have a whole room full of people who desire you now. All right. And if you're a young girl whose father has abandoned her, and now you have all of these men, they're looking good, some of them are older, everyone wants to take care of you, people are promising you things. How do you deal with this if you're on the road and you don't actually have basically a den mother or someone else to look after you? These are 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old girls and boys in some instances, okay? So you've basically just thrown them out there because, again, the record label is making their money. And so Motown went through a training process with them. And a lot of it was, you back in this hotel at a certain time, we're all in one group, you don't leave the group, da, da, da. But that was very strict and very strategic, and it was theirs. When you start thinking in terms of every other group of folks, young folks, who had to deal with this, a lot of them started out in churches as church singers, all right? And for the first time, they're away from all of those rules and regulations of their parents, they're away from the rest of the choir, they get out there in the streets, and it's like, hey, all right, everyone is out to exploit them. Yes, everyone is out there to take advantage of them. And when they fall, it becomes, oh, they should have known better. But how do they know better? You know, how are they supposed to know better? I'm sorry.
And Dr. Chantel, like for the past 20 to 30 years, right? We've been having all those black celebrities, actually black billionaires into, for example, music industry, film industry. How come, I mean, from an American point of view, how come that they wasn't able to break that pop culture the way they've been part of it and portraying it?
Again, sometimes you have to determine, are you in it for the stardom or are you in it for the artistry? All right. And so sometimes it's a long game. If it's India Irie, she's still around. All right. If it's Gil Scott, she's still around. Okay, there's no compromise in it, but it means it's a slow build and it's a steady build. It's a Sade, it's a Patti LaBelle, you know, slow build, steady build, but you're still where you're supposed to be. It's not this thing of a meteoric rise where you're straight up to the top. And then you get there and it's like, what am I supposed to do with this? You know, I say sometimes if I've had lectures to do and they're back to back and they're day after day, you get excited, you get out there. It's not a performance, but I'm out, I'm talking to people, we're engaging. And then when it's over, it's like, wow, I'm still hyped up. You know, I feel like I need to go skating or something. All right. I could just imagine, if I were in a live band performing with people, and now I've done this and I'm still up, and now I've gone to an after party and shook hands with people, and I'm still up, but it's 4 o'clock the next morning. All right. And so you start to see again very easily how people will manipulate and exploit the fact that you're tired. You are not taking care of yourself. We've had a number of artists who died from things like kidney failure because they've been drinking, they haven't had a glass of water since the mama gave it to them years ago. You understand? But they're on the road. They're depressed. They're dehydrated. They've not been told how to look after themselves, how to say, I've had enough. You look at someone, and I love her dearly, and I'm glad she's 80 years old. You look at someone like Tina Turner, who was told 35 years ago, you have high blood pressure and you need to start taking this one pill every day to get yourself in order. And she said, I don't really like the way the pill makes me feel. And so decided not to take it until she gets 25 years into this. And all of a sudden her kidneys are shutting down and she has to go through a dialysis process and she has to go through all of these other things, even though she knew better to some extent. Being in the Ike and Tina Turner review, I just told someone else, they were performing 315 nights a year. You understand what I'm saying? That's a lot of being on the road, not getting a proper night's rest, on the stage, loud sound, you know, not getting sleep, not being nourished properly, not taking care of your mental health, in addition to all of these other things that were taking place. You understand? And, you know, I say that as a person, I knew Ike Turner. You know, so I listened to this man as he aged, saying things like, you know, you could sleep on the bus, you could sleep on the plane. But when you get out there, you know, we're hitting and we're making money, and they got to keep the money that they were making. So there was no record label or anyone behind them. And when he died, he still died with money. All right. So you do have a handful of people who got control and kept control. All right. And to his credit, like I said, I know that he's vilified for a lot of things in a lot of ways. But as a businessman, this was one of the few people who was not in the back pocket of the music mafia. Okay. He demanded his money in cash for every performance. And to, you know, according to him, this was sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in a briefcase. All right. All right. So again, that 315 nights that you're doing, and each night that you come off the stage, you got a briefcase with cash money in it like that. So there was money there. Rappers have been using Ike and Tina Turner riffs for years because he kept the copyrights. He kept the music rights, the things that the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or any of them, if they sampled it, he kept the royalties off of that as well. So there are ways of getting in there and getting your money. But you almost have to be as villainous as you possibly can to stay in that space. You understand? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are ways of doing it, but you know, it's a long haul, and You know, he said himself, there were times when you carried weapons on you because that was the nature of the business.
Dr. Shantella, can you please tell the audience, the people who are watching, about your contact with both of them to give it some more? Yes, because
Put it in
I know
context.
because that came off.
people know. Could you
It
please
came off kind of like what?
what you want to share, of course, but
It's
so
okay. Years ago, as I have a 30-year career as a journalist, in addition to the historian. And years ago, as a fan of Tina Turner's, I just kept trying to figure out, how did this very, wonderful, talented woman get hooked up with this quote unquote crazy man? It doesn't make sense. And so I'd seen the movie and all of that, but I kept saying, I want to talk to him. And 1997, 98, I called, I found him. I asked for an interview and he said, I'll grant you an interview provided you do not talk about Tina Turner at all. And I said, okay, because this man had a 25-year career before he met Tina Turner. And I was like, okay, well, who is he? So you do the research and you find out he is the person who scouted out B.B. King.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
He is this person. He is the person who helped scout out Howlin' Wolf. He's pulling people. He was in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and he was pulling these people from the Mississippi Delta into Memphis and into these recording studios. And he was getting his money that way when he started his own band. And, it sets off and he's doing whatever he's doing there. I find out that when Ike and Tina met, he was married at that point to wife number 7. And Tina was his 8th wife. Right, you choking over there. I had, and
Uncle Ike really needed a Black Madonna. I'm
well,
telling you.
well, and to put it into context, when I met him, he was married to wife number 13, and I subsequently met and am still friends with his widow, who was wife number 14, Audrey. So, like I said, there had to be something else about him. But in doing the interview, what I found out, I just wanted to talk about the business and a lot of the things that he had to deal with within the music business. And what I realized was he may have been an extremely difficult person to be around because he was extremely demanding. And I think that there were a lot of childhood issues that he had, including childhood sexual abuse at the age of 4 and some other things that I think, informed the way he dealt with women. But, it's my understanding that Ike fought a lot of people, men as well. It was what do you call it, bipolar situation that years ago, it wasn't something that you would diagnose. So I was able to be around him a little bit. And just in being around him, he called me his niece. I called him my uncle. We could hang out. Everything was copacetic. It wasn't, anything to that, but it was just watching how the music business worked. And to see him perform to a point where we get to him winning a Grammy on his own for best blues performance just before he passed away.
Wow.
Right. So 2007, 2008, I believe, when he passed away, he had just won a Grammy for best blues performance. And, we talked about that whole thing of who controls what. Years ago, in order to get on the radio, you had to go to the radio station and pay what was called payola. You had to pay the radio station to play the music. So it wasn't about popularity. It was about who paid to play. And if you refused to pay, you couldn't get your song on the radio.
On the radio.
All right. Right. So if you didn't have deep pockets, even if you had the best sound, you couldn't get on. So I think the same types of things started happening with MTV and other music videos.
Yeah, they're still
spaces.
using the
Right.
same, they're still using the same technique. I mean, the majors, because now
Right.
like Sony, MCM, they bought MTV. They're part of MTV Music, so it's only those affiliated with them or into the TV stations,
Absolutely.
And MTV bought all the small TV music televisions, and even Holland, they bought off TMF, and the box. So only those who are affiliated with them can get to the radio and the TV.
Exactly. So unless you have deep pockets, or you get in, and you have to be prepared to compromise. So if the person in the office over there says, for these videos, we want you to lose 20 pounds, then you're off trying to lose 20 pounds because you're messing with the bottom line, which is the money. We're not talking about your artistry or what you want to say or how you want to say it anymore. We're talking about these people's money. And what they do a lot of times, and you'll get this, King, is that they give you advances. They give you advance money on things. So now you're behind the gun and you have a certain amount of pressure to perform and get it right so that you're not in a hole with these people. And so, you know, I started laughing again. I don't like the film Cadillac Records is great up to a certain point, and I won't get into that. But one of the points that's made when they're dealing with this artist, Howling Wolf,
Yeah.
the company comes to him and says, we'll give you this and we'll give you that, and we'll just write it off when the money comes in. And he said no, because he had been a sharecropper. All right. And that sounds like sharecropping to me. I'm going to give you the seed, the tools, you stand on my property, and then when the crop comes in, we'll settle up. But you'll never settle up to a point where you make a dime.
Make a dime.
All right.
And he was one of the persons that, because when you were talking about Ike Turner, who controlled a lot of his money, so did Howlin' Wolf. He
Absolutely.
had his money. He was a very smart person.
Very right.
Yeah, he never got onto into their game. He was making them play his game.
Exactly. And that's where I think, again, you know, Ike always said that Mississippi mentality, when you've been in spaces where people exploit you and they cheat you and there's nothing that you can really do about it, and you understand the money in my hand is all I have. I can't take your word. I can't take your handshake. I need to see this money in my hand, and we can sign contracts. But the fact that you have a Cadillac, someone's giving you a Cadillac each year, or the house that you're in, you think it's your house, only to find out the company still owns the deed on it. And so when you stop making money for them as an artist, it can evict you at any point, right? Because you thought it was part of your payment for your services. The reality was you never owned anything. Too many of us get into the business without understanding the business. And that's everything. That's whether it's journalism, sports. How many athletes are dealing with the same type of thing, but they haven't read the contracts? They see the number at the top.
Right.
That's it. They see the bottom line, which is the number. They don't see you have to play so many games. You cannot speak your mind. All right. I dare you to take a knee. I dare you to take a knee. All right. They're not looking at things like that to understand it could be traded at any point and sent to another country, another city, another whatever. They're not looking at it like that. And so we don't understand the business that's involved in this. And that's why we're continuously exploited. And we're coming out on the bottom of these situations. It's an easy remedy, Eyedontha, but it's literally, we need to have music accountants that look like us. We need to have attorneys in the business who look like us and have our interest at heart.
Have our interest at heart is the most important, because a lot of people, they will look like us, but they don't have our business at heart. They follow the money. They follow the money.
Actually, Dr. Shantella, like a few weeks ago, we had that viral challenge, Don't Rush. And, you know, specifically, we had the chance actually worldwide seeing those beautiful Black people in any kind of, how could I say, activity, walk. You know, we had the Don't Rush challenge. Well, I was quite proud of it, about, you know, Black female lawyers from the Netherlands. You know, we had the Black female doctors, we had the Black male doctors. You know, it was quite an experience to see worldwide how people were representing into that Don't Rush challenge that went viral.
Okay, I missed that. What is the Don't Rush? I think I lived.
You missed that. Don't Rush challenge. You know the music from those two guys from Nigeria living in England. Don't rush. Tut 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 tut. And you had anybody just rushing the camera.
Yeah, and then they change clothes or something like that, right?
The switch,
First,
Then you had any kind of Don't Rush challenge. Yes, you had a Black female lawyer from Holland, Black doctors, Black female lawyers from America, Chicago, all over. So you could, you know, see and relate, and I think it was quite a great experience to, you know, to be part of that and to see like how everybody were representing, and you know, that's really transcending a really strong image.
So, and this is good that you say that, Don, because this is what Dr. Shantella is saying. We have the telephones, we have the option or the ability to build our own platforms and um, be our own channels, right? Make our own
Yeah.
music. Um, so it's a different time now, right? So is it possible? Is it, yeah, because you know something, I this is what I okay. If it's that easy, it should have been done long time ago. So there are, isn't there only a space wherein you can maneuver, would you say? And is it because you said the music mafia. You said music mafia.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we're dealing with people who don't want to lose their money.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. And again, it's like last week when I talked about DC and go-go music. All right. We have our own icons. All right. So it's up to, I think maybe a year or two ago, um, we had a local go-go artist who was on the Grammys, opened up the Grammys or something, and everyone was so excited out there. The people here in DC was like, oh yeah, that's our guy. That was it, But his thing was not to become what we call white famous.
Mm-hmm.
He's made his money. He has his house and he has generational wealth for his kids and grandkids. He's fine. So again, it's what is your goal with this? Sometimes the best go-go music that we hear in DC, the kids are out there in front of the bus stop beating on the mayonnaise jars. And we're like, oh my goodness, people are getting out their cars dancing. It's that type of thing. So yes, they probably made enough cash money as some of these people will end up with when all is said and done. You understand what I'm saying? So, I think Spike Lee did a movie years ago, School Days, where they had a go-go song in it, Doing the Butt. And we was like, okay, well, that's all good. We were happy with that, but it's like, yeah, we do our best music right here where we are because it's not for them, it's for us. And so this is the thing, we have a lot of homegrown talent in DC. I bring up Edie Green, who is a comedian, and he actually he was in the same vein as your Paul Mooney's and your Richard Pryor's, all right. And he had that level of talent. They get him to the Johnny Carson show one night, and he gets out there on the stage, and in front of a live audience, he says, you know what, I'm not doing this, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because it's one thing for you to laugh with me. It's another thing for you to laugh at me. And I won't let you exploit me like this. And you talking about old school mic drop. It was like, and they were saying something else. And he's known for, I'm not sure how sensitive you all are, but he's known for the N-word. And just like, again, the Paul Mooney's and the Richard Pryor's. And he said, I'm not that nigga. That's not me. All right. When I say this word, it's because the people that I know take it for the love that it is. And he would do stuff like get on TV with a piece of watermelon and sit there. And he say, how many black people are too embarrassed? You want to get a fork and cut up this watermelon because you're embarrassed. And he just stuck his head in the watermelon. He was like, this is how you supposed to do this. And so he was like, don't lose sight of who you are trying to be something that they want. And so I think every artist has to deal with that same thing. Every person who's in that popularity vein has to figure out, do I want to sell 1 million books, Ayedontha? Or do I want to do like Frances Cress Welsing and say, 30 years from now, I want somebody to still be picking up In Search of Purity saying, she hit it on the mark. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have the long haul. And that's what we have to decide, because guess what? When you choose this pill over here, what tends to happen is these other folks get to it. They find someone younger, thinner, whiter, who they can get to mimic you. And then you're cut out of something that was intrinsically yours. All right. Yeah. And then you're dealing with the mental issues, and you're dealing with the depression and all of that.
Yeah, true that. Before we go to the last phase, is part 3. There are no more, not that much questions, because I shared the link on my.
Okay.
So what I want to do with you is to do the 100 years of music and put it in a timeline. So we have a time frame of what happened, what, and why it happened, and when. Yeah, is that okay with you?
Yep. Yeah? And you do have, when you initially put that on, there's a lot of overlap.
There's a lot of overlap, yeah, because
there'll be a lot of overlap.
10 years, or it's more like decades. Yeah. But
Right.
Really, for us to get a a timeline, like, you know, we have the lineage timeline. So
Mhm.
now we have like the music, pop culture timeline. So we have
Okay.
like, you know, different stuff.
Okay.
So when people say stuff, we be like, no, 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 because that happened in the,
Right.
I saw
No,
that in
right.
House of Khepera.
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Shantella told us. Yeah?
Yep.
Uh,
So I
yeah,
think you started with where
the
did you
blues.
start at though?
Did it start with the blues? Minstrels, the minstrels.
Well, you would go back a little bit further, and I would say spirituals first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And a lot of these spirituals on plantations actually had a lot of the original African origins in these. So there were certain, right, there were certain words, phrases, lullabies that let you know you were not home. This is a
Oh,
foreign space. But they fall in line with Alan Lomax's prison songs. So these are working songs. You're working and as you're going.
and which year are we talking about?
I would say enslavement moving forward, but let's just say for records purpose, 1820 moving forward.
So
All right.
then spirituals,
Yeah.
rituals,
Mm-hmm.
African songs, let's say that.
And what you end up having are minstrels that grow out of that.
Minstrels grow out of that.
Right. Because the minstrels were actually part of the minstrel shows, which really weren't Black people at all.
Exactly.
These were white people dressed up in blackface. This is your sorts of Pete.
Yes,
Okay.
that's 1900,
Right.
right?
Say again.
1900s, round
Oh no,
about.
no, no. You start this 18 enslavement is still in the process. So 1830s moving forward.
No, the minstrels started at
Minstrels. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because they
Yeah.
needed time to copy. So
Well, what they would do is if they're white people to come to a plantation, sometimes you would have the plantation owner ask the Black people, tell the Black folks, dance for us
Dance for
or
us.
sing for us. And so you have these white men that copy what they saw down in the slave quarters, or what the slaves were doing. So the dancing, the moving about, the language of it all, and just understand that once again we're talking about the difference between what you're actually capable of doing and what you choose to show. So the fact that many of these Black people were sneaking off learning to read and could speak just as good as their English was just as good as the white folks, but they were dubbing their language in such a way that it made the white people feel comfortable. So part of minstrel programming is also the language and the linguistics of it. All right. So you didn't say I love Sally. I love, we love, it's a way of doing it where you're clear. This is white person is mimicking what he thinks a slave sounds like.
Right.
All right.
mhm.
And I always say, understand that you got Phyllis Wheatley and all these other amazing Black folks who are writing and speaking and orating at this point. So this is not common. This is, they are more common than this, but this is what you show again for public spaces and for popularity, right? So white men took this and what they did was put on blackface and they traveled the nation in blackface doing minstrel shows in order to let people know this is what Black folks do.
Yeah, and
Right.
so this is pop culture starting,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And so what you'll have is once slavery has ended, start having Black men and women who are cabaret performers.
Cabaret.
Right.
And
But
what
the only way that they can, right, the only way that they can actually perform is if they're performing in blackface. So now you have Black people who have to perform in blackface.
Really?
Right. Yes, ma'am.
wow. Really? She said really. And
Yes.
what time? Because we need the time.
So we're breaking out of 1870, 1880.
So,
And Bert Williams. Look up Bert Williams. There was a famous duo, and his partner's name is escaping me right now. But Bert Williams was a famous actor, singer who had to perform in blackface starting out.
and he's
All right, he's a
the
Black man
Black
who
man
had
with
to perform it
blackface.
right in blackface starting out.
Wow.
Okay, so again, when we start talking about everything that you're talking about, this white man has done Blackness so well, the stereotype of Blackness so well, that when an actual educated Black man comes up and says, I want to perform in a cabaret type setting, he's told the only way you can do this is in blackface because white people are not used to seeing
Black people.
Black people perform the way they are. And he was about your complexion, Ayedontha. So and tall, very, very statuesque, very, you know, big man, you know, so it's like, okay, the fact that you would take him and you're gonna have to, you know,
So
blacken it up in
humiliating.
order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
So
humiliating.
And then
yeah,
so first we have spirituals, then we have the minstrels, and now we have the colored people or black people putting up blackface
right.
around
And so
1970, 1800,
right,
18.
so these are 18 about 1880 moving forward.
Yeah.
You have ragtime, which is it's jazz, but it's a type of jazz where it's a lot of that New Orleans. I can say New Orleans sound, but you may not understand what I'm saying.
I,
It's a slow it's a slow there's slow riffs to it, usually a lot of piano, and there's several films written about ragtime in just that era. And so we're talking turn of the century ragtime, RAGTIME,
Oh yeah, Scott Joplin.
ragtime. Yep,
Scott
Scott
Joplin.
Joplin.
Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
All
And then,
right.
I mean, like Scott Joplin is really he's very famous because of his music that he played. And it
Mm-hmm.
was in this movie by Paul Newman and Robert Redford. I forgot.
There you go.
It's the Sting. It's the
Okay.
Sting.
the
And
thing.
it's I don't know what the sound of how you define that sound separate from other types of jazz, but there's it's very, very distinctive.
Very
And so
beautiful.
you have ragtime that comes in, followed by there's some folk type songs, banjo playing. That would
Oh,
be country. You know, we
yeah.
kind of like country music. Okay.
And who's playing country then? It's like
Um, a lot of this is just, well, I was going to say a lot of this is live performances. So if you can play a guitar and sing, the folk and the country become our blues.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You know something? There's something that I really found out just the other day, and it's connected to Suriname because the word banjo is connected to the word what we call banya, and banya is actually the celebration that the enslaved people had, and they were using a string instrument, and the string instrument, the oldest one in the world is from I think it's like from 1700, and it's from Suriname. And
Wow.
there was a big exhibition here in Amsterdam, and they actually brought it in because one of the guys that was fighting against the Maroons, he took it to Holland. He brought it to Holland, and I actually found out that banjo, the word banjo, or that string instrument, is like from the Gambia, Senegal area. You know, that's where they kind of placed it. And every time when I hear when I hear people saying, "Oh yeah, banjo," you know, I'm thinking, "I Suriname," you know. So, but I think that even people like Joplin's music, which was mostly piano music, you know, which you know, you can already see that the way it's been duplicated, and you know, because I know this other guy that played his kind of music, and even even today, I mean, you're gonna hear that music. They use it for advertisement. They use it like on TV, and that's like a music that's almost uh, it's 100 years old.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, Sister Benji, you bring up something I would add on to that list. I want to be real clear because I left it out, but I think that again, it's something that from the moment we got here on these shores to the present, the use of drums, right? And
mm,
so
started with
at some point it became illegal on plantations for you to use a drum because this is a
Exactly,
communications tool, all right?
exactly,
And
exactly.
so for Native Americans and Africans, the rhythm of your heartbeat is something different. So we start talking about things like the ring shout, which goes back to the religion and worship, where you can no longer use drums because they've been outlawed. All right. But you're using the soft toe, the shuffle of your feet to make the sound of the drum. All right. You're using the pats on your leg, on your thigh, to mimic the sound of that drum, because drums are outlawed at this point. Right. And so ring toss is that you know how we right. You know that there's this other thing that comes back around in the 1970s. And part of the 80s, when you start having this disco music, and all of a sudden people start doing that quick party. Okay, that's part of your original ring shout.
Ring shout.
All right, and so ring shout. Right, ring shout. So ring shout again is what you were doing in religious ceremonies or in worship services on plantation, because you couldn't use drums, and it was understood. You know, your drums again are your life force. All right, for Africans, all African cultures, your drums are your life force, and you're connecting. You take your shoes off, your ancestors are beneath you, so it's literally now you're beating out, you're patting it out with your feet. All right, you got me. So that
the grand chakra, the red chakra.
There you go. Chakra. And so again, I'm gonna toss it back to Ike Turner real quick. I would always say, you know, the white people are off beat. He said no. If ears have been trained to 1 and 3, their ears have been trained to the beats of 1 and 3. If they're 4 beats, bump, 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 bump. White people's ears are trained to 1 and 3. That's why they always off beat. We're trained to 2 and 4, which is your heartbeat. All right. So I don't care if it's a black person, you just came in the room, when you hear the music, you know where to hit your foot. All right. White person, they standing there listening for a minute. All right. Where am I supposed to go with this? And then unless they're following your beat, they're always going to end up on 1s and 3s.
Yes.
Their ears have been trained to 1s and 3s. It's the lullaby. It's the violin. You're listening for the rhythm. We're listening for the beat. All right. And so when they realize that you can communicate from plantation to plantation, miles away, with that beat, no more drums.
No more drums.
All right? No more drums.
Same thing in Suriname until 1975. It was not allowed. My mom was always telling me that it was not allowed to play the drums inside the city. So that's why, Suriname. That's why a lot of the when people are performing spiritual gatherings, it's always outside of the city.
Wow.
It's always,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. My mom was telling me about this one of her neighbors. She always told me, she said that this lady called Miss Becker, but she was a really spiritual person. She said when she was having her spiritual gatherings in her yard in the city, she said the police would just pass that. It's like they never heard the drums.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
She was a higher level. Yeah.
You know,
you could get arrested for that.
We cannot underlay the power of the drums, you know, lifting you from your ground chakra up to the higher chakra, and, you know, getting in trance and getting supernatural and so on and so on. I mean, we prior to go to war fighting, you know, we need that power coming from the ground. This grounding. So it's really powerful instrument, and those Hyksos, Waidos, those people without melody, they knew about the power of that instrument. So spiritually they were aware of what that instrument could do to us, you know, reconnect us with the ground and just get into our spirit and being supernatural.
Yeah.
You know, it's always
I'm sorry. Before, we still have less than 30 minutes left.
Okay.
No way.
Say something quickly.
Real.
Yes, way.
Like
We have less than 30 minutes left, and I really want to.
I mean, I still have the question to ask
this is what
Dr.
happens when you have
Shantella.
fun. So before you continue
Which time we are now in the timeline?
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna leave my story out. Just continue.
Okay. Before you continue, I should a shout out to Femke Baron. She's watching. Hi, Femke. And I know she's a good friend of your sister Benji.
Yes.
Jimmy Graceberg. Hi, Jimmy. Light Soundboy. Thank you for watching. And who else? Hesdy Doost. Welcome. And I think that is it for today. So that was a quick shout out. Thank you for watching. We are on the wrong channel, so this is why this is happening. But thank you for watching. Dr. Shantella, you finished or you left for break time?
Okay, so by the time you get to like I said, the blues carries on to roughly. I mean, it's continuing on now. If you start to get an overlap coming from the 1920s, moving to about the 1950s, where rock and roll is introduced. And rock and roll, right, rock and roll is an offshoot of the blues. And it's just an instrument. It's that slide guitar. All right. So that, what is it, Stratus Fender? All right. The Fender, that's the added piece to it. You add electrical guitars to that, you start to have rock and roll music. That carries on, it loops on into the 50s, 60s. 60s you start to have, or 50s actually, you start to have soul music. You start to have crooners, right? People that want to sing love songs. All right. So it's a bit of a pullback, but everything is very melodious. And you get some great folks. It's a lot of groups that come out, these 50s groups that come out, and the men kind of wave their hair. Yeah, they've kind of waved their hair out. 60s, you start to have something that's a little more soulful. And so you, instead of having rhythm and blues, R&B music, they start calling it soul. All right. And this is strictly, for the most part, a very, very Black genre. You'll have a few folks that they say white-eyed soul or blue-eyed soul.
Blue-eyed soul.
Blue-eyed soul. Dusty Springfield, she did it well. To her credit, she did it very well. You had a few people that got in and did that. But you also had a crossover between R&B, soul music, and rock. And so with that, again, you start getting these Black soul artists that come over to England. And so you have the Isaac Hayeses, and you have, again, the Ike and Tina Turners. You have these other folks who hook up with the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, David Bowie, Elvis Presley. Start getting these folks that hook up there, and then there's kind of a blending of sound. And so we end up having a British invasion here, where those cross currents kind of come into play. And so there are a few artists that kind of straddle that fence and did for quite a while. By the time you get to the 80s, it's almost like Black people have kind of been pulled out. So you have some disco that's still hanging around a little bit, but you get a pop culture, which is the Michael Jacksons and the, yes ma'am.
Yeah, 1 second, because
this is when the curly get in.
Yeah.
That time is when the curlies get in.
Yeah, Adon, this is serious business. Dr. Shantella,
we just went from Afro to
people
curly.
are getting out now. So are you saying that from slavery until, so the spirituals, the minstrels, the ragtime, the country, the rock and roll, and the soul rock, and the rock soul, and the R&B, is all Black people are making that music?
I won't say that I shouldn't say they're getting out, they're being pushed out. Is that a better way of saying it? So right, you start having people like Donna Summer, who's doing something very, the soul part of this, the very Black part of this is either being reformulated. All right. So when you get to, most people say, we like to forget the disco ever took place. All right. It was a real, real weird era. It was a lot of partying, it was a lot of drugs, and a lot of the music came about inside the club. So again, the Donna Summers, but then you have folks like Natalie Cole.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Where literally, if you're listening to Sophisticated Lady, you're trying to figure out, where do I put this?
Yeah.
That right. You get me? So all of a sudden, when I say Black folks are coming out of it or being pushed out of it, they're going back to the space where they're just embracing what is uniquely their sound. All right. So you can't find a place to put them. The Motown sound was very distinct. The sound of Philadelphia, TSOP, all right. Right, you have all of these folk. Isaac, I listen to Isaac Hayes sometimes, and I'm trying to figure out if I had to classify this. I don't know where to put this brother. You know, hot-blooded soul. What do you do? Then you get funk in there, all right. So you start talking about George Clinton.
George Clinton, yeah.
What am I supposed to do? Right. So you confuse the record label so much that they just say, get on out there. And what you start to have are Black performers who understand, I may never make my money from the record label this way, but if I make the right deal on the road, my money is going to come from live performances. Right. And then they start going outside of the country. So as African nations gained their independence in the 70s and moving into the 80s, you have all of these soul acts that started having these big concerts where they're in Ghana. All right. We're celebrating the independence of Ghana, and we take in, you know, all Wilson Pickett and all these people are going over there to perform, and we're going to reconnect with our African roots. All right. And that money went overseas. They were able to hold on to their money that way. They had a different audience, and it worked that way. So the traveling and the concert tours, instead of them being strictly American, where an American record label has control over them, they're now international, where they can control their own music to some extent.
Yeah. And there's something that that we actually forgot to mention is that the music was also segregated, because you actually had like a white hit parade, and you had like I don't remember how they call that. I think you must know that, but they had like a separate music, like you had all even in the tours that they did, what they call the Chitlin circuit, and also the music was the music was not together, and I wonder when did they break that up, because of course you have different sections in the hit parade right now. Like you must have like R&B, and you must have hip hop, but it used to be separated. And when did that change?
This only the change in labeling didn't occur until the late 1980s. And the proof of that is if you go back and you look at the American Music Awards or the Grammy Awards, they didn't say years ago best R&B album or best rock album. They said best Black performer, best Black female. Right. They said best Black female, best Black male. But then when it came to rock and all these other genres, they listed the genre rather than saying best white performer. No. So it was like, all right, best Black female performance. That was actually the labeling for that. And that's what your award said. So race was very, very, very much a part of all of this. And again, it's only when you start leaving outside of the country and you start performing as the opening act for the Rolling Stones or the opening act for David Bowie, and you start doing duets, or you start getting Hollywood involved in it. So you're doing motion pictures where the Black performers are there, or you get somebody like Hugh Hefner, who I didn't realize he had a TV show years ago called Playboy After Dark. Right. So he had the girls in the bunny outfits walking through like a cocktail bar, but then he would have Black artists on the stage actually performing. And it was one of the few ways in which Black performers could be seen on national television. And so he called it Playboy After Dark, and he was making enough money that broadcasters went ahead and let him actually broadcast his time. But you weren't going to have a Black performer on American Bandstand starting out, or on the Ed Sullivan Show starting out. And so they had to take these risks. Right. They had to take these risks to do that. Because and again, the Chitlin circuit was to make sure that white people weren't going to go into a Black neighborhood to see these Black performers, because if you're socializing, eventually you'll be having sex with each other. That was the logic. Okay. So we want to keep you in separate social spaces.
And then we're going into the eugenics, and we're not going there. That's for another. No.
Well, from the 50s to the 90s, right, Dr. Shantella? I mean, I just like, I guess 4 or 5 weeks ago, I just discovered about Sir Clarence Evans. I never came across his name or his work into pop black music and so on. So I was quite amazed to find out about him and what he's been doing behind,
behind the
the
scenes.
scene and so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But
I mean, yeah. I mean, we've had folks who literally, but they're so few and they're so far between, or the powers that be don't want you to know that you got this little black man out here running everybody.
Unbelievable.
All right.
Unbelievable.
And it's just one of those things where, if you pay attention long enough, you start to see it. And so you get to a space where we start talking about rap music. And it's like, okay, now the video will actually let you see black people in the video. So black man, black woman, how do you want to represent yourself? And you go out there and you got your oversized leather jackets on and you looking good. You got your hair done the way you want it. And it's like, yeah, but this is so powerful. And the average white person that's an executive doesn't understand it. So for me, it goes right back to those drums. If I can't understand it and I can't decipher it, let's pull it. Or let's just confuse the issue to a point where you have some of the, I won't say weakest, but they're not the best artists. But they get the recognition. Right. So I always say, if I'm riding the 70 bus uptown, I hear the best rap music on the back of the bus. And that's some guys back there just freestyling. And they're going for it and they're not missing a beat. If you're in New York, the best basketball you ever gonna see is on the 4th Street Blacktop. All right. These brothers are doing backflips and handstands and shooting from mid-court and landing baskets, but they don't have contracts. So what you're doing is you're focusing on this. Again, if Black people focus on what's great in their own space and make that great in their own space, and then when someone shows up in a shiny car and says, I can make you a star, you say, I'm already a star. I'm good. I'm good right where I am, because literally it's the cipher, it's to pull it out of you, to take control of it, figure out how you do it, get someone else to do it exactly the same way, and then cut you out. All right. And so, like I said, I've seen amazing Black people do amazing things, and they never had a record contract a day in their lives.
I'm here.
I'm sorry. Don't
I'm
take
right here.
yeah. I'm looking at the time. We still have 15 minutes left. So, and we stopped at 1990, I guess.
Okay. And so when we get to the 90s, we kind of go into, some people call it neo soul. It's like new soul music. It's a lot of bumping and grinding music. It's the R. Kellys. It's the, it's the, and we would say people like In Vogue or Escape, or you even have, I think, Destiny's Child is probably coming out 90s and the 2000s. That, so everything is very packaged at that point. And so they're going back by an old rubric that is, what sells in Black communities? What are Black people's interests? Fighting, sex, fashion, and food. And food. Right. So basically, any video that you have, make sure you have people who are dancing, let them smoke a little weed, show that they have some money, the right type of clothing, but the music itself could be absolute nonsense. And so the music at that point, in many instances, started losing its message. And it was just about, not to pick on them, but knocking boots. I've never liked the term. It's everything becomes very, very sexualized.
Exactly.
And so we used to say, when In Vogue first came out, it was like, oh, these 4 women have beautiful voices, so why don't they cover up? Exactly. Because only women who can't sing have to show their bodies like this in these form-fitting dresses. And you just sing the songs because you're amazing, just as you are. So you don't need all of that. But that became the criteria. Yeah, that became the look. Right. And that moves into the 2000s, where you start getting children younger and younger into this. So you have the New Edition, Belle Biv DeVoe, Another Bad Creation. It's a whole group of them. And they're literally like some preteens to maybe 22, 23 years old. And it goes back to that old Motown thing where you're going to get them, they're poor, but they can sing and they have great talent. And you have record executives that are going to school talent shows, scouting talent from little kids, and then basically having their parents sign off on these contracts that we talked about that turned out to be really, really bad. Right now, I'm not sure what I'm listening to. So I think that there's always, that goal to have some balance. But also, I don't want to leave out the fact that we had a whole group of soundtracks. And at one point, soundtracks became even more important than individual artists. So if you look at, for instance, the movie Claudine, when you get a Curtis Mayfield in a room, that's it. The soundtrack from Car Wash. All right, that continued on. Okay. And you can move that straight through the Staple Singers, everything that they did. Most of these are soundtracks. And you can pull this up again when we start moving into the 80s and you get Boomerang. I don't even know if you're familiar with that, but you get Babyface and 15 different artists. Each one of them has something to say. You get, what was the women that were, everybody lost their husband or something.
Oh, yeah, with Whitney Houston and
all right.
That movie called again. Oh man.
Angela Bassett, Loretta Devine.
Yeah, beautiful movie.
There you go. Every song that was on there, you know, again, it was about the collaboration of all these different people. The problem was if they're on different labels, who gets to make the money?
Yeah.
And so very slowly you see the soundtracks are gone.
They disappeared because good movies have gone too.
Right. Right. And so that's the whole thing. That there is no, you can't solidify because you can't separate the money properly. So that becomes an issue.
Ask you a question, Dr. Shantella. What is your take on the way that I should say hip hop music changed from being an inspirational kind of music into a destructing kind of music? Because we were talking about drill music the other day, and I felt that at a certain point, even here in the Netherlands, a lot of young people were into, I'm East Coast and I'm West Coast. I mean, what are you talking about, man?
It's a lot of unnecessary bolstering, and I think that again, when you start off with hip hop, if you had rivals, they were rap rivals. All right, but how did you end a rap battle or a hip hop battle back in the day? Break dancing. Come on, you're gonna see who would be the better breaker. So it's just like nobody was fighting because everybody wanted to see tomorrow and have a good time and have and go on with their lives. So when you get the industry involved in this, and it's about making money rather than I want the street claim. I got street credit as being the baddest rapper this side of whatever. That's what the rappers were talking about. You know, I got the baddest rap. And the rap was not just the rapper, it was the DJ. You got to figure out who can spin and cut that music the right way. And it was the clothes. You got your double rope chain on. So it's all of these things that in the neighborhood that blend together. You can't mimic that. And so all of a sudden now you're talking about girls and sex and fighting. And I was all for the Gil Scott Heron, who started out with this as a under-recognized rapper, as far as I'm concerned. You pull Gil Scott Heron in there, and you start, people are talking about what the city is doing, how the state isn't right, how the government isn't right, this, and this. We don't want to talk about that, so I'm going to give you something else to talk about, which is this girl over here and how she looks. And, it's about sex and it's about violence. You can't have Public Enemy. Why did Public Enemy disband? Over some foolishness that was involved between the members? For all the stuff that you were creating. Right. The rest of that didn't even count. It was just like, get your personalities together. You don't have to live in the same house with each other, but you're doing something that's greater than you are at this point. So, and you can't have people that you, like with the Supremes, you can't exchange a member out and put somebody else in. It doesn't work like that. No. One of these men brought something to the group that the group needed. So your KRS-Ones, your Public Enemies, right? Come on, that's what you're saying. These are the folks, all right, even your Queen Latifah starting out, your MC Lights, these people, when you're first, Boogie Down, all these people that started out, they had a message, they had passion about it, and it wasn't then about making money. It was about getting on the mic. Yeah, and having street cred.
Yes, I have to break in. I have to break in. We have 8 minutes left, and I just want to do some shout outs. Eric Sparks later said Prince is killing it on the soundtrack of Batman 2. So that's true. And don't forget the funk area, he said. funk. You said something about funk.
George Clinton. Yeah, again, once you couldn't
Yeah.
classify it.
Waiting
Amazing.
to exhale. Thank you, Narissa.
Thank
Thank you. We were waiting for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Femke also said that was a long time ago that the executive are only thinking about themselves. Yeah, and that's about it. I think we have 7 minutes left, and I wanted to show because we do this all the time, and what happens is we get short in time and we don't tell the stuff that's also important. Could you please share the message from the t-shirt? This is the t-shirt you made. I just
But see, I was going to say, I don't know what's going to happen. As soon as I start mentioning eugenics, you're gonna start giving me this.
Loved it.
I was like,
Do we
so
have
that's
this
fine.
also
That's
on
fine.
the male version of it?
We can create one, but the reality of it is, since we talk a lot about the woman's womb
Yes.
as the fertile soil, and the DNA strand that's going around her neck, around her head, and all of this. This is literally, people believe that you are coded, genetically coded. Black people are genetically coded for failure. You're genetically coded to be a subspecies and subhuman. And so this is what goes into the music sometimes. All right. You would ask, is this song appropriate? If it's for a white kid, never. If there's some Black people singing and it's for Black people's consumption, you say, go ahead, throw it to them, because that's who they are. So what my thing is, God created us to be a certain way, and brilliant. No two people on this planet are exactly alike, not even twins. So each and every person has a very specific DNA, and it fits into a chain of other things, true enough, but be uniquely you. When it comes to this music, give me something I haven't heard before. And that's why I said, I don't think there'll ever be another Nina Simone. You couldn't copy that if you tried. All right.
All right. For real.
Okay. Right. So with the music and everything else, popular culture is only popular because it's you. And if I can pull you out of it, then I can, at the same time that I'm mimicking it, actually destroy it for you. And if it's part of who you are, I'm destroying part of you. And I'm making you take down a watered down version of something that's intrinsically in you. All right. So it's kind of weird. I always tell people, it's like somebody saying, hey, I'm going to give you, take a pineapple and cut the top off and put a straw in and say, here's some fresh pineapple juice. And you say, no, I don't want that. I'd rather have the Kool-Aid with the pineapple flavor.
That's so,
I mean, come on. Just like, I'm giving you authentic realism. I'm giving you everything you need. You can go to the bank on what I'm talking about. And people are going to the bank on us all the time. But you're going to turn around, take what I have, reformulate it, and throw it back to me in a contaminated, watered down format. And I'm over here rocking to it. No, sir, I'm not doing it. So we just have to be smarter about what we're doing. That's all.
Yes, thank you.
I love it.
Much, Dr. Shantella.
Now I'm having a new announcement to anybody asking about my uniqueness or my music. I'm coded all the way coded.
That's right.
That's my new paragraph.
And I'll see about getting you a male version of that.
A male version?
I love it.
Yeah.
King is not the first person to ask about that. And so it's like, yes, a lot of brothers don't want to walk around with the sister on their chest, but it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. We're going to wrap it up. Wrap it up. So it's the Acumen group.
I want to be a hero. You see.
Hey, that's it. I'm all right with that.
You are. We're going to wrap it up. The Acumen group, Dr. Shantella Sherman. Where can they find you? Could you please give us your email address, your
websites?
It's the website www.theacumengroup.org. So it's the Acumen Group all together, lowercase.org. You can reach me, send me text messages or whatever. Not text messages, don't call me. That came out too quick. I'm on Facebook, Dr. Shantella. I'm on Twitter, Doc Shantella. And I will take your emails though. So drshantella@gmail.com. That's Shantella@gmail.com.
Okay, thank you for that. You can reach Sister Benji at Benji Margaret on Facebook. And you can also send her an email. People can contact you, Benji, Sister Benji?
Benji.
I don't know. I think they can send me an email at my cultural pathfinder. Think that's a good idea, you know?
Yeah, Cultural Pathfinder, yeah, email, not email, but website. Yeah,
Yeah,
Cultural
yeah,
Pathfinder
yeah,
website. Then you can
yeah.
find. And King
That's a good idea.
Karleon, where can people reach you?
The House of Khepera, and probably soon decoded, coded all the way across DNA. Any musician watching this, even 10 years from now, just stick to your uniqueness, like Dr. Shantella say. There won't be a version of you sounding like her or his favorite artist. Just stick to your own code and your DNA and do whatever you can do as better. So now I know I found my purpose. Thank you, Dr. Shantella, for giving me those power words. Because anybody who been asking me, why you do not sound like this? I'm coded. You need to understand it. Educated.
Yes,
Perfect,
I'm coded.
perfect.
Okay, the last before we close. Okay, you can always also reach House of Khepera. You can watch all the sessions we did before with Professor Smalls, with Dr. Kaba, with Dr. Kimani, with Sister Benji, with Don Carleon, and Sister Benji. You can watch all of those and all the topics on our Facebook page, and soon they will be published on our YouTube channel. So you can do all that. I really wanted to announce I think the next topic, but I'm still thinking, I think it should be about whiteness so we can, figure out better what Dr. Shantella.
You've been speaking all the time, even Dr. Shantella, sometimes about eugenics. Everybody's been watching all the sessions. They be hearing like eugenics. We want to talk about it. Eugenics.
We're not talking about eugenics.
Now I'm like,
not talk about
now I'm like, hold on a second. What's that eugenics thing?
We are going to talk about it. And you know something? You know what happened? We're going to talk about whiteness first, and then we're going to talk about eugenics. And I think we should talk about eugenics with Django Unchained. So this is something we can do in the nearby future. And then we're going to do it three-dimensional, as you said, Don Corleone. So we will give people a code so they can join us on Zoom. And then we share this Zoom on our socials so they can ask the questions in the Zoom. What do you think about that, Dr. Shantella?
That works. Look, as long as I get the eugenics in there, I'm good.
Then they can do the eugenics. Yeah, then
all right.
The eugenics. Okay, it's a deal. It's a deal. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much, Don, for being here, even though you're in France and on a holiday. So thank you.
Chasing Black Madonnas all the way.
Yeah.
I have to do a shout out to an elder, a brother, a father, a grandfather for many, some. Dr. Rinoko Rashidi, we're hoping to get you soon on the show because we have a lot to talk. I know you'll be watching. A special shout out to you. So
thank you.
Get back to us and let's do this.
Really appreciate if you join us. Thank you for that, King Don Carleon. We're out. We're going. It's time. I will miss you. Let's stay.
It's been fun, guys. Can't wait to the next one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shantella. Thank you, everybody.
Sister Benji, bye, King.
Yes. Next time.
Thank you, Dr. Shantella.
Okay, bye-bye.